These are your active transport notes of the cellular respiration, Chapter 7, Section 4 unit.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like.
Active transport is a little bit different than passive. The three types we're going to talk about are the sodium-potassium ATP-ACE pump, endocytosis, exocytosis. Energy is needed in the form of ATP since the molecules travel from a low concentration to a high concentration, or what we call against the gradient. This is like riding your bike up a hill. Energy is needed since you must pump your legs, and you are also moving from a low area to a high area. If you look at the diagram, you can see how it is demonstrating the various properties of active transport. Here at arrow 1, you can see how active transport uses a carrier protein to transport materials through the plasma membrane. Here at arrow 2, it is showing how energy, or we know it as ATP, must be used since movement is against the gradient. And then finally, over here at arrow 3, it's showing how substances move from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration, or against the gradient. The first type of active transport we're going to discuss is the sodium-potassium ATP-ACE pump. Here are the steps. Step 1. Sodium on the outside of the cell will bind to the sodium-potassium pump. Step 2. The sodium binding then stimulates the ATP to be used. This allows it to work. Here, ATP, as you can see, is losing one of its phosphates, which allows the carrier pump to change shape, allowing the sodium to be released to the outside of the cell. Step 4 then allows the extracellular potassium to bind to the carrier pump. Step 5, potassium can then enter the protein pump. And then finally, potassium is pushed to the cell's inside where it is needed. This is found in the plasma membrane of animal cells because it helps to maintain homeostasis by keeping sodium and potassium balanced. If they were not balanced, you would get cramps. As you know, ATP-ACE, ending in ASE, means that it is an enzyme reaction. Key things to remember. 3 sodiums move out to 2 potassiums moving in. We have to use energy, called ATP, since it's going against the gradient, and it also uses a carrier protein called a pump. Let's watch the actual process. Here you can see the sodium getting ready to bind to the protein pump. And here, ATP is ATP, but then here it's gone down to ADP, and the other side of the protein pump has opened up. Okay, the sodium is being released, and now the potassium has attached to the pump. The pump is opened up, allowing potassium to come in. And again, here it goes a little bit faster. Another kind of type is coupled transport, but it's not active transport. You have to kind of think of it like a little piggyback ride going on, where sodium is going to go out and then sugar can come in. This is actually a type of passive transport that we know called facilitated diffusion because there's no energy being used. You can see here in the picture, the sodium-potassium pump is working like normal, but just that when sodium goes out, sugar can come in. So here you can see the sodium coming in as well as the sugar coming in. And when enough of that sodium is in, the potassium sodium pump can then work. So this is how your body is able to keep on going so that you don't end up with cramps. The sodium is on the outside, but it has to be brought back to the inside so that pump can work correctly. The second type of active transport is endocytosis. This is the process by which a cell will surround a substance on the outside, it will enclose it, and then bring it into the cell. So as you can see here, the cell is engulfing or surrounding that substance, and it will bring it to the inside. And once it brings it to the inside, it brings it in as what we call a vacuole. And it's still active because it is using energy and it is using some kind of carrier protein, but we just call it a vacuole. And there are two types of endocytosis. One is called pinocytosis, which means it's going to bring in some kind of liquids. And the other would be phagocytosis, which is when you're bringing in some kind of solid material. Easy way to remember. Endo means in, cyto means cell, osis means condition. So it's the condition of bringing something into the cell. The last type is what we call exocytosis, and that is just a secretion of materials outside of the cell. So here we have our vacuole, and it's going to be pushed to the outside, so whatever we don't want is then expelled outside. Usually it's going to be some kind of waste, something that the cell does not need anymore. Again, it's going to use energy because it's against the gradient and it does use a vacuole. Remember, exo means out, cyto means cell, osis means condition. Thus, it is the condition of going out of the cell. So, here are our essential questions. Describe the difference between active and passive transport. List the three types of active transport. What's the difference between endocytosis and exocytosis? And what's the purpose of a carrier protein? Some vocabulary that you should know. Homeostasis, diffusion, equilibrium, endocytosis, exocytosis, and coupled transport. This concludes the active transport lecture. We will discuss both types, active and passive, in class.